Welcome to MCN and the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450, also known as the Himalayan 450 if you are certainly based from India. This is part of our 2024 long-term test fleet, and Joseph here has been the owner of the bike for the last 8 months. He's done an awful lot on the bike, and we're just going to basically chat to him about his experiences over that time, what's been good, what's been bad. So, Joseph.
Hello, mate.
8 months you've had the bike.
Yep.
I've obviously followed your progress. You've done a lot on the bike.
Yes.
Give us a bit of a rundown of the main sort of type of riding that you've done so far.
Yeah, so in the 8 months, just shy of 10,000 miles on this bike.
Okay.
I've actually had 2 separate Himalayans in my time.
Right.
But
okay.
I'll come on to that
right,
in the
Yep.
10 bad points. But I've used this as kind of like a 50-50 travel bike, road and off-road.
Yep.
I've probably done every green lane in eastern England. I've done a 3,000 mile tour of Europe,
Yep.
12 days, and yeah, just basically I've met up with a lot of 411 owners of the previous model,
Yep.
Himalayan, and just seeing what they were using the bike for, and I'm just trying to completely replicate that, which is a bit different for me because I've come from sports bikes. But from the tests that we've done, when we've always done small capacity adventure bike tests, I've always thought that just makes so much sense as someone like myself on an A2 license.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just tell us about that, because you really have, it's a completely different bike to what your own bike you've actually bought a couple of years ago. Your
ZXR 400, so yeah, definitely been into like sports bikes, and and for me, that's when I think of motorcycles, that's still what I think of,
Sure.
and where I have put my own money.
Yeah.
But obviously they're very impractical things, especially a 90 sports bike. So having something like this, a travel bike, which is kind of the definition of being practical, it's been a welcome change this year.
And it's opened your eyes to a lot of things. Yeah. It sounds like you've done a lot of different riding that you certainly wouldn't have done on your Kawasaki.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, off-road, I think, obviously I like doing track days, and I've just thought, can I get that same kind of adrenaline rush, but slightly less risk, slightly more kind of accessible from doing green lane and off-road?
And have you? We'll get into it a bit
later.
Yeah,
that will come into it. If this is the right bike for it or not, we'll come on to that in the points.
So I'm really interested in this because I've actually done a fair bit on this bike. I was on the launch out in the Himalayas on the bike, and I've also done a few group tests on the bike. So it's a bike I know well. So I am actually, and we've ridden together on it. So I'm actually
I've followed you on your 690.
I'm quite intrigued to hear what you've got to say. So right, without further ado, okay, so we're going to start with the pros.
Yeah, no particular order, just kind of, yeah.
Fine, we'll start with the first one here. So, fatigue-free ride, you're saying it's comfortable riding position, effective screen, limited vibrations, and that is equated to it being a good touring bike, a good touring machine.
If anything, I mean, this is a travel bike. Big miles, no fatigue, and they've done an absolutely amazing job of that. I mean, I'm only 5'8", but the kind of geometry, rider triangle, if you like, is just set perfectly for someone. So, for example, when I did that European tour, I smashed out here to Switzerland in the first day, and we're talking 14 hours on a motorway, and absolutely fine. Only stopping for fuel, and this bike is just, for a single cylinder, the vibes are actually really manageable for someone like myself.
Right, okay, that's impressive. And what was it like actually on the motorway? I mean, what sort of speed could you sort of comfortably cruise at?
Look, it's not a GS. It doesn't have cruise control, but compared to the previous model, the 411, I mean, you've got double the power here with the Sherpa 452, and that does mean that you can go on motorways. You can cruise comfortably at motorway speeds or a little above me.
Yeah, you're not at the absolute limit. You can still accelerate.
Still a little bit for overtakes and stuff like that,
Okay. That's impressive, really, because I mean, like 14 hours on any motorbike is that's a long day. It's a big day.
Exactly, yeah, but it can handle that kind of stuff. And the seat is worth mentioning. You guys on the group test had the rally seat, and this is the standard seat, and the rally seat is really, as you would think, is very uncomfortable, and this standard seat is super plush and lovely.
Because the rally seat, you could really feel the sort of structure underneath. Whereas, like I say, we didn't do crazy mileage on the launch, but we did still have long days, and I don't remember it being any sort of an issue. So interesting. So handling, it sounds like you've done a lot of road miles, and I know the trip you did in Europe, would have
it was
a lot of twistings.
Alps, Pyrenees, it was hairpins and
Okay, so handling, you've got a relaxed, low, long geometry coupled with quality shaft suspension, which I agree with. I mean, the bike offers confidence when cornering, and it also then it holds the line well.
Yeah, I mean, it took a little bit of getting used to with a bike like this, because obviously you're so used to riding sports bikes where you're braking into a corner, loading up the front suspension. But on this, it's a completely different thing. It's all about kind of flowing lines, and I think the fact that it is low, quite heavy, and it's not the most premium suspension, but it's really good for this kind of package. And it's the ability to just kind of hold a line, feel stable, and the confidence to, you know what I mean, get on the throttle basically.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah, it's not sports bike handling like it's sharp and quick. It's just super nice and flowing. Neutral is how I'd explain
Yeah,
it.
I mean, really low centre of gravity.
Yeah.
I think that's a real sort of key factor to that. I mean, and yeah, I think suspension, you know, you say it's not premium, it's obviously not adjustable, is it?
No.
You've got no adjustability. But I remember being quite impressed by the way it, you know, it's obviously a heavy bike and it sort of
It suspends
supports
itself
it well,
well,
and
yeah.
it supports
Exactly.
it well. So, okay. Right, sharp rear brake. Strength of the rear brake helps keep the bike weight in check and improves the handling.
Yeah.
Explain that one.
You can tell Chris Northover was involved with the production of the rear brake on this. It's obviously it's a heavy bike, and I haven't really used too much rear brake before. But on a bike like this, which is, I mean, edging on 200 kilos,
Yeah.
having a really sharp brake, which I'm guessing is they use a lot of rear brake in India, don't they?
Yeah.
And they're riding there, but it's kind of the ability, if you're coming into a corner, to kind of steady the bike,
Yeah.
and it is super sharp, and you almost get this feeling of being able to move diagonally with the bike and turn in a lot easier, and I'm glad it has it for the weight of this bike.
Right, okay.
And it is also a bit of a criticism of the front brake, because it's just not that enjoyable of experience, but the rear brake definitely makes up for it.
So you really do find you're having to use them in conjunction? You
Yes,
can't-
definitely, and
right.
even more rear brake
More rear
than I
brake.
am front, just because
Right,
of how
okay.
effective it is.
Right, okay, so
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, modern retro dash. So round design suits the bike, offering a modern feel whilst also delivering clear, concise data and app connectivity.
Yeah.
The only gripe is the indicator symbols are too small. What, you just leave them on, do you?
Yeah, I mean, we've been riding, and a couple of times you give me a little, you know, and that's my excuse, the fact that,
Okay,
but no, it's definitely user error, that last point, but I would like to just see the symbols a little bit bigger on the dash, but everything else about that dash is perfect.
Right,
I
okay.
liked the previous model, you know, with the compass and
Yeah.
you know, in proper
Yeah.
analog, but that with the phone connectivity, it is really good for a £6,000 motorcycle
Yeah.
to have that kind of dash, and it suits it just down to a T.
And you don't think it's, I guess coming from the 411, I sort of thought it felt almost too modern for the bike, but you obviously don't think
Yeah,
that.
I really want those features that,
Right, okay.
that it's able to give
Yeah.
me. So I understand the point, but I think that is this bike. It's like, it does what the old bike did, and it has that kind of charm to it, and a bit of kind of, you know, I mean, it's not too modern, but then stuff like the dash where you want it to be up to date really are, and it is concise and helpful.
Okay, so utilitarian looks offer style and substance. Bike looks unique in its class, and crash protection is effective. Why have you discovered that, Joseph?
Just on a couple of occasions, I haven't been launching this bike into the scenery.
No.
I have been new to riding off-road, and
Yeah.
I can confirm that crash protection at the front is welcomed, and I like the way that makes this bike look. It's quite beefy, it's quite chunky, and yeah, I'm a big fan of the crash protection.
Right, and you've added the bark busters on as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've been just super. Like within the first week, I bent the lever, and I need
And since you've had those on, have you had no
issues. Yeah,
with
it's
levers?
been great. Yeah.
I'm not an expert. I regret that.
Good. Okay. And no, even though, like I say, it's not like you've been crashing your brains out on it, but because of the riding you've been doing, it's been dropped a few
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
I guess to say. Have you caused any damage? You bent anything? What's
No,
happened?
the only things that have gone would be the rear brake pedal and
Yep.
lever sometimes bend, but they do bend
Because they're
back.
steel, they'll just bend straight back.
Exactly. It's those kind of exposed bits, but that'll come on to my bad points as well, as they're a little bit exposed.
And you say it looks unique in class. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not trying. I don't know another bike that looks like this. They haven't copied anything. I mean, if you look at maybe CF Moto 450 MT, you can see where they've aimed at, where that's taken style from. Whereas they've done their own thing. They haven't tried to make it a big adventure bike
No.
because it's not. You know
No.
what I mean? And I like that for.
Okay, and you said that it cleans nicely, especially the wheels.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of this Hamel black colour scheme,
Yep.
gold wheels. Yeah, they're just a pleasure to kind of clean and come up really nice. Not kind of, you know what I mean, for a £6,000 motorcycle, having nice gold shiny wheels is
Yeah,
is
I mean,
cool.
like you say, you've done a bit on it, and it is, you know, you've obviously given it a clean for this, and it's come up well though, you know, especially
Yeah,
when
exactly.
you're riding this time of year, you know, bikes
And green lane at this
are
time.
getting caked. Off-road confidence, so bike has a wide range of skill range, great bike to learn off-road, and offer something for more skilled riders.
Yeah, so I am talking about yourself when I've seen you doing group tests. I mean, look, it's, you know what I mean, it's not an enduro bike,
No.
but someone like yourself probably can get quite enjoyment about it. Like the 411, an experienced rider can ride this. It's a bit of that fun challenge,
Yep.
but it is exciting. But then on the other end of the spectrum, someone like myself, never done a green lane, but having a bike where you see a byway and you go, you know, I'm actually just going to give that a go. And I think that's what this bike does really, really well. It's you're a new rider, you want sure-footedness, something that's not intimidating. It's perfect for that.
It is confidence inspiring. There's nothing
Yeah.
scary. There's nothing outrageous. Like everything's quite soft on the whole
Exactly.
on the bike.
Yeah, and it grows with you. You know what I mean? If you want to push it a little bit until a point, it's going to come with you.
Yes.
And I think you only need to look at our small adventure bike
Yep.
test. You doing laps on this, or there's a video of Chris Northover in a rally with this bike, and it's like, well, okay, there's more to go.
Yeah. And seat adjustments. So seat can be changed 20 millimeters higher and lower within seconds of moving a bar under the seat. And I guess that's a good asset for the
Yeah.
whatever type of riding you're doing.
Exactly. I know a lot of adventure bikes will probably have this, but it's a simple thing. Under the main seat, you remove a bar, 20 mil down, and that is the difference between feeling confidence off-road when you're
Yep.
new and
Yep.
not. And then also, let's say you're doing a big motorway stint, you can raise that seat up and just increase the kind of angle at your leg, and there
Yep.
you are. That's more comfort. So simple things like that.
And it really is
like
that quick to do, is it?
Yeah, you can do
Yeah.
it in seconds.
Right,
So yeah, it's
okay,
great.
That's good, isn't it? Yeah, okay. And then you talk about the versatility of the bike, specifically with reference to tyres you've used on the
Yes.
bike. I can see you've got through, so you've had 4 sets of tyres on the bike. So
Yep.
start with the original OEM tyre, what they
See it grips.
Yeah, what were they like?
I mean, we quite often, I find, disregard the standard tyres and we say they're terrible, but you know, this isn't a sports bike. You don't need chemical adhesion to the road, but this is a 37 horsepower bike. That tyre is perfect fine for this bike,
Yep.
unless you want to do off-road. It's got a lovely profile, really enjoyed it. It wore very well. But yeah, just trying to take that tyre off-road, especially at the start of the year when the conditions weren't great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
just,
we ran those tyres on the launch, and
Yeah.
and it was dry, and
you'd
they
be
were
fine.
and they were absolutely fine. There was
as soon as a
issue
bit of
at all.
rain, and it's just impossible
Right,
with this
okay.
kind of weight to keep that bike in check.
Yeah, sure, okay. So next up, you went for the Anarchy Wild. So
Yes.
what was the motivation for that, and how did that?
So
sort
yeah,
of work
that
out?
kind of slip in, uneasy front, feeling like it's going to fold everywhere off-road. Went for a 50-50 Anarchy Wild.
Yep.
I think that was your suggestion,
Yep,
actually.
yep.
Great tyre, kind of all round. Obviously, it's a knobbly tyre, so you don't get kind of like, you know what I mean, you're not throwing it into the corners, but you're never doing that anyway on this kind of
Sure.
bike. My only criticism of the Anarchy Wilds is they just wore so quickly,
Yeah.
got so hot on the centre line, and the rear just, you know, I mean, I think I came to ABR with yourself,
Yep.
and I think it was like having a slick in the middle and just, you know,
Yeah.
knobblies on the outside, just
So
because.
what sort of miles did you get out of those, you think?
Probably coming up to 2,000, so
Right,
I'm not
okay.
sure quite where that's stacked for about a knobbly tyre, but
Yeah, I mean it's not disastrous, but
I'd say after about
you haven't
1,000,
got a
they'd
lot of power,
lost
so
their
you would
edges.
have- yeah, okay, so yeah, not amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So next up, you went for the Dunlop Trail Max Meridians, and
Yeah.
what was the motivation for that? Was
It's
this
just a
your trip?
sport. Yeah, this is for the European
Yeah.
trip. So when I did my trip, I didn't do any off-road. I was riding with my mate who doesn't do off-road, and I just wanted the best profile, best kind of grip I could get from, you know, what I mean, a road tyre, and the Meridian was the thing that I thought suited that the best.
Yep.
And flawless tyre
Was it good?
for the road. You know, I mean, I'm in the Alps and stuff.
Yeah.
It just beautiful. Complemented the bike really well. No compromise at all for the road.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then you went back the other way, and the Mitres Enduro Trail XD Dakar.
Yeah, so
So,
that's a 80-20 to
And that's what
off-road.
we've got on at the moment.
Yeah, they came out this year. This bike has some uncommon tyre sizes with a 140/80 on the rear.
Well,
They've
it's
made
a 17. It's a 17.
17
rear,
as well.
that's
It's just a
yeah.
weird size.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And yeah, Mitres have brought out this tyre, and like things that I couldn't do before, that tyre has allowed me to do.
Right.
We did a day at Salisbury Plain.
Yep.
Really, really wet, clay.
chalk,
Yeah,
wet chalk.
exactly. Following 690s, I was going to struggle, but that tyre gave me the best chance. And I think the best compliment I can give these tyres, yes, they're brilliant off-road as you'd expect, but they're very fun on the road. Quite liked the feeling of a knobbly on the road.
Yeah.
If you look at that front tyre, it's actually got quite a lot of coverage.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So things
And
like
it's
braking
quite a
aren't
round
spoiled.
profile as well. Yeah.
And it definitely gives the bike kind of a very light, flickable feeling.
Yeah.
But the only problem there would be if you were a brand new rider, maybe you wouldn't like that kind of instability you get.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you're someone maybe who's used to that, it can be quite fun.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Nobody's, they generally get for quite a lot of grip, but they just don't give you that sort of confidence.
No, you don't want to. You go a little
there's,
bit.
there's a lot more movement, and like you say, that can be a little bit daunting.
Yes. But yeah, they're the tyres I ran. I don't think I ran any of them to completion, except from the Anarchy Wilds.
These are lasting well, though, aren't they?
Yeah,
Did you have
yeah,
a bit with
definitely.
those?
Probably they've worn so much better than the Anarchy Wild,
Right,
and they're an
okay.
80/20.
Right.
And I
okay.
think they're I don't know if this is the right word, omnidirectional, but you can
Oh, you can
flip them
twist
round,
right,
yeah,
okay,
because
so
the
you
profiles.
get that sharp edge back.
Yeah,
on the other
exactly.
side. Right. Okay. And then an important one. So value and dealer network.
Yes.
So £6,100. Admittedly, it's a big increase in price over the 411, but it's a lot more of a bike, as we've already discussed. And the dealer network, I guess, is quite.
Yeah, I'm going to come
Wherever
on to
you are.
why that's important, but on my European
Yep.
trip, I may have had some issues.
Right.
And I was able to, in Switzerland, Italy, you know what I mean,
You get help.
get to a place where they could help
And
me.
6.1, how do you think that sort of compares with the market? And
Yeah, I think it's super competitive on PCP. It's a more affordable bike, and when I look at stuff on the fleet, which I know is definitely not a comparison at all, but the last video we filmed was on that Harley Davidson CVO Pan American. I'm thinking, I think that's £24,000. I'm thinking you could have 4 Himalayas.
I don't know why you want 4, but yeah, I hear you.
But it's that kind of thing. Do I think this is a quarter of the bike? No, I don't. You know what I mean? And I
sure.
think in terms of fun that I've had on this, I'd have more fun on this than something like that. So that would be my yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think about the price of this and how this sits, especially with the lightweight, or not lightweight, but small capacity adventure bike class?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously seeing the Chinese bikes, the CF Moto, come in even cheaper. But I think for me, I think it's priced about right. I mean, I think it's definitely competitive price. I mean, obviously the original 411 was like 4,000 when it first came out. It was crazy money. And obviously this is a significant step up. But like we said, it is a significant step in terms of the capabilities of the bike and the engine. So like you say, with the dash, and there's a lot of decent quality things on the bike, the shower, suspension, etc.
And in like an Indian market, this is a very, very attractive thing. So I think they've hit the market well with this bike.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So moving on to the cons, Joseph. So the first one, I'm going to do them in order. So the first one is weight.
Yes. This is.
So what does it weigh out in at?
196 curb weight.
Yep.
That is just, for me, that is just silly kind of weight.
Yep.
You feel that all the time from moving it about on the road, especially off-road. I think they've missed a massive trick. And the thing is, this is the same weight as the previous model, which is, I think, their kind of claim with it. But still, when you're comparing it to other bikes, that weight is just a lot. And I'm not sure if you'd agree, you know what I mean? But that's kind of middleweight adventure bikey kind of
well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the same sort of weight as a Tenere 700.
Exactly.
Or
with
a
half the power.
Yeah, okay. And like I say, it's not on your list, but we've got to mention this side stand. Because I don't know if you can see from the angle.
It's about to fall over, isn't it?
It's just so leant over.
Yeah.
So you really are reminded of the weight of the bike literally every time you come to get on the bike. Which is a little bit,
And I've tried to do things like I took off the rear rail here, took off the the centre stand, a couple of extra bits that bolted on, but I'm saving like 10 kilos, and there's things like the rack I would actually quite like.
Yeah, quite useful.
And I just think so. I think people need to have the conversation with themselves. Buy something like the Royal Enfield Gorilla or the Triumph Speed 400 if you're not doing off-road, because that weight, it's a lot to carry around with you.
I mean, playing devil's advocate here, it is, it's made of steel, it's designed to lasts for a long time. It's designed to be dropped, picked up,
Yeah.
dropped, picked up, and everything's sort of bending back into place. It's got, these aren't like, it's not token crash protection.
No, it is full on,
It's
yeah.
full on crash protection. So there are a lot of, you can look at it either way. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. Whenever you try and ride it that little bit quicker,
Yeah.
especially off road, you really do notice the bulk of it. And I guess with it being, the small, lightweight adventure bike class, it doesn't really kind of fit.
Yeah, I got a chance to do a bit of MX this year, and obviously got to ride a really focused, off-road machine, which was half of the weight of this. And it's just amazing what you can get away with without that weight, because as a new rider, a small kind of mistake can lead to something quite big on a heavy bike, whereas on a light bike you're able to correct that instantly and it doesn't even phase you. So that's like you say, with the off-road, this is the weight.
Right, okay. Lack of charm. So compared to the 411, the 450 lacks character. The 411 was a tractor, whereas this is a Jeep. Okay?
Yeah. So it's going to be quite a
then.
hard point to explain, but I did a lot of rallies with 411 owners and a lot of ride-outs, and what I mean by this is that old bike was, the story of that old bike was people went to ABR for test rides.
Yeah.
Everything was taken, all the expensive stuff, and that the previous 411 Himalayan was left. People took it out thinking, oh, I'll give that a go, and we're like, you know what, actually that's the answer. That's, fun, cheap, reliable, and does what you want to do. People had it as their second bike because they had a GS that they didn't want to take off-road.
Yeah.
And then they went, you know what, actually, I'll have that as a little plaything. And it had that kind of chug factor.
Really long stroke motor, really long, yeah.
And I almost think for the UK market, is this a little bit too nice for that second plaything? You know what I mean?
Right.
If you've got your GS, would you buy this? Or do you know what I mean? Or would you buy a CRF 300? You know what I mean? Or that kind of bike.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I think I just, when I've ridden with 411 owners, I get the impression that they really didn't want this bike. They were very happy with what they had from Royal Enfield. So that's what I mean by that.
Okay. But I guess we sort of touched on it. This, you're sort of judging this as an off-road bike. And it is, but it's like it's a travel bike, isn't it?
Yeah. That's how I've used it.
It's like a go anywhere type motorbike, rather than if you had a van and you were putting a bike in a van to go and ride off road. This wouldn't be
of course not.
The weapon of choice. But if you're going to ride somewhere and then do some off road when you get there, then changes things a little bit. Okay. So reliability, limp modes. 2 press bikes suffered issues due to faulty throttle position sensor, causing the bike to enter limp mode. So where did this happen, and how often big a problem was it?
So the first bike, I need to make sure I explain this correctly. So the first bike I had, after 4,000 miles, I was just riding along one day on the motorway, pulled into a petrol station, pulled out, and the bike I had half power. It was in some kind of protective limp mode. And that was a week before I was about to go on this huge European trip.
Right.
So I basically said to Royal Enfield, stuck in this limp mode, is there any chance you can either fix it or give us another press bike for the trip? And they gave us a new press bike, like 500 miles or whatever on it. Took it on the trip, and then on day 2 of my European trip, as I was just approaching the wall of the Swiss Alps, the bike went into limp mode again. And I remember, I think I called you. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Can't get up the hill.
I can't get up the hill.
What a nightmare.
And for the following 4 days of my trip in the Alps, every 150 miles, the bike would go into limp mode for no reason, and I'd have to pull over, disconnect the battery, spam the ignition, and that'd fix it.
Wow.
So then I went from the Swiss Alps to Milan to get the bike fully fixed. They advised it was the throttle position sensor, changed the entire unit up here, and that did completely get rid of that. You know what I mean? For the rest of the trip, it was absolutely fine. I was impressed with how Royal Enfield dealt with it. It did seem like priority number 1 for them.
Right. Okay.
But for a new bike to have that kind of problem on 2 press bikes,
that's strange.
seemed a little bit strange to me. I'm still kind of working with Royal Enfield about why the throttle position sensor kind of went. I don't know, I could be the only 450 owner that's had this issue.
Well, it'd be interesting to know if anyone else has had that problem.
Yeah, that was for me, reliability is a massive thing with a travel bike, and that kind of problem wasn't great.
But since it's been fixed,
Since they've changed that unit,
no
it has
issues.
been absolutely
Right,
fine.
okay,
Yeah,
so
and that has been the only issue mechanically
so
with this bike.
it's a component. Fine.
Yeah, I don't know.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But like you say, when you're stuck on the side of the motorway, it's everything. It's
Yeah,
your world.
and that
it's
was
your
my
trip.
holiday as
That was
well.
your
So,
holiday, yeah.
and like there was a couple of situations. I think we went through the longest tunnel in Europe, and literally within the first minute of being in this tunnel, like a half an hour tunnel, the bike entered limp mode, single lane, and it was just like, this is just dangerous at this point.
Yeah,
So, it's something I wasn't too pleased about.
Yeah, and you lose your confidence in the bike, and you lose,
Yeah.
which is anxiety inducing.
Exactly.
Okay. Gearbox. So force neutrals. You're saying you can forgive the gearbox not being the smoothest.
Yeah.
It's a budget bike, but force neutrals between fifth and sixth are super jarring.
Yes, jarring is a term I was going. But yeah, so I was lucky that I've had 2 press bikes that I've done 4,000 miles, on each, and both of them suffered the same problem, which is kind of like a loosening off of the gearbox after about 2,000 miles.
Oh, so initially it was okay.
Initially they were fine, yeah,
Right.
and then I think over time they've loosened off a bit, and I've just noticed I do clutch a shift up, and on the top of the box between 4th, 5th and 6th, if you're wearing a bulky adventure boot, I was just always getting these kind of
It's
false
easy to get
neutrals.
wrong.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Which on a bike where you're using the gearbox all of the time and you're constantly shifting is jarring. It's just
okay.
like, I've ruined that
So between
experience.
4th and 5th as well as 5th
Yes.
and 6th?
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
okay. So mirrors. Mirrors are quite simply pointless.
Yeah.
No vision over 40 miles an hour. What's that down to? But
So-
the angle or?
So the vibes of the bike are quite good, for the rider, grabbing on the bars, they've obviously damped it quite well. I just think these are quite a budget element.
Right, okay.
And, far away from the bike, they just vibe and you just get swirls.
So you can see the
you can
angle's
see
okay,
something is behind you, but you
it's
don't know
just-
what it
it's
is
just a
because it's just so
vibration. Right,
much
and if you
vibration.
just touch them, it just goes. does
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Right,
So
okay.
I think if I had the bike for any longer, I'd put double take kind of mirrors on for the off-road element, as well as having something that's a little bit sturdier, basically.
Right, okay, yeah, no, fair enough. Fuel range. Bike isn't enough to warrant how often you're filling it up. Eco mode isn't drastic enough. Fuel cap doesn't stay open when filling up, really?
So I don't know if this is down to the side stand, and I'll show it close up on the camera, but it just closes, so I know that's a small thing, but surely someone's got to be testing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then what I mean about the fuel range, and so this
what's the tank?
17 litres.
17 litres, okay.
And I've seen on forums people saying they're getting 240 miles out of it.
Yeah.
This is what they're quoting Royal Enfield. Okay, if you say under 5,000 revs the entire time and you keeping it in your pants everywhere, then yes, you can get miles like that. But as soon as you think, I'm going to use what this bike can do, going up to 8,000 revs every now and then, it just drops off an absolute cliff. And
Does it really?
So I was riding with my mate on a GS when we did that European tour, and it just felt like I had half the range
And
of
that
him.
was not a 1200. That was
That was a
massive
small
tank.
800, yeah.
Right,
And
okay.
I mean, like, there's times where I'm having to think about it at 150 miles. I just think,
I agree, yeah.
I wouldn't say the bike, so the point really is, I don't think the bike is exciting enough, to warrant visiting the petrol station so much.
17 litres isn't bad for a 37 brake horsepower bike, but it's interesting because you mentioned that when we did the ride, I was on my 690, which is obviously a much more highly strung motorbike, and when we filled up, I think I put less fuel in to get back than this.
So yeah, it's a weird point. I think that there'll be people, 450 owners, that will be completely disagreeing with me, but for the way that I ride and doing off-road and stuff, it just seems like you're filling it up all the time. And like, I've got a ZXR 90 sports bike that struggles to get 3 figures, but I'll fill that up all the time, and I love it. You know what I mean? And whereas this, I just don't think it's got that kind of thing where I'm like, yes, I want to go again. It's just like,
It's a pain.
Exactly.
Okay. Low and wide pegs. Feet feel exposed and get ripped off pegs when in ruts due to insufficient ground clearance. And that is a limiting factor for off-road users. Okay.
So like I say, I've been doing so much green laning, and the bike is capable. You can get anywhere on it. And even when we rode with yourself on a 690, obviously
Yeah.
massive skill difference, but other than that, I think the part where I just lose sight of you is you come up to a really deep rut, and the pegs are just so low and wide that your feet are just getting ripped off left,
Yeah.
right and centre. The gear levers getting hit on the side of ruts. So there's people that will not take this bike off-road, and that's not going to faze them. But for me, the limiting factor of an off-road machine is the pegs are just too low and wide. And I know that when we done our group test, one of the riders, Chris, he had his foot ripped off as well. So
Yes.
so you ride so in like this, and it's just, yeah, it's not great for
Yeah.
ruts. As a new rider, this thing does struggle.
No, I completely agree. I mean, you just look at the bike and you can see how kind of where
Yeah.
they are on the frame, and how those sort of hangers bring them quite low. And like you say, they are wide, which
Yeah.
I guess gives comfort.
Yeah, you can weight the pegs nicely, and
But
yeah.
I had that when we did the lightweight adventure bike test. I had my I caught an edge.
Yeah.
And you're off. Yeah.
And once you've done it once, you're like, okay, now I'm just constantly aware of it. In ruts where you need to have a clear mind and
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean, relax, it's just not what you want.
yeah,
really.
and your feet are vulnerable, and that's never
No,
a good thing.
exactly.
Okay, so long gearing, sweet spot for green lanes is right between first and second gear, leaving you working the gearbox constantly. Lazy revs in second, coupled with aggressive rear brake, is a recipe for stalling. Yes.
Yes.
I can,
So this is something that I thought was user error, new rider, off-road, and I thought I'm stalling the bike quite often. And it's because you don't want to be screaming the bike out in first, but it doesn't have the chug factor in second.
No.
And then, so you're riding low revs in second, you go to tap the rear brake, and because it's so aggressive, which is good for on the road, but for off-road, it just has this tendency to stall the bike. And I
Yep.
thought that was me, and I would kind of ride around it. But then when I saw that you did it,
and we've got it on video,
Yeah.
so I couldn't get away with it.
With my pegs in.
I was like, okay, actually. So I'd be tempted to change the gear in, but then I'm like, then you're just going to ruin it for the road. And it is that 50-50 travel bike for me.
You could probably go 1-2s off the front or something just to kind of help it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you wouldn't want to be doing anything too drastic, because like you say, everything's a compromise.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, that's just a little point.
Mud collector. So mud gets trapped around the rear shock area and builds up with a lack of runoff. Adds weight to an already heavy machine, and it's difficult to clean.
Yes.
So I know where.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm green laning in November and December in the UK. It's not pleasant. If you're on fire tracks and it's the middle of summer, you're not going to encounter this.
No.
But this section here, where you've got the catalytic converter and this shock, just builds up with mud, like ridiculous, like
Yeah.
10 kilos worth of
Yeah,
mud.
I mean, it's all just sort of flat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything's just there to.
I've got a photo that will kind of demonstrate it better than I can explain,
Yeah.
but it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like, and like I say, it's already a heavy machine, and I felt like I was carrying around 10 kilos of mud in that part.
That's the way, okay. And it's not, yeah, we've touched on this with the tyre side of things, but wheel size you think is a con because of what it's just restricted your tyre choice.
Yes.
And it's all just down to that 17-inch
It is,
rear. Just for the record, mainly off-road bikes, off-road focus bikes will have an 18-inch rear. And if you look at any tyre manufacturer,
Yeah.
the range of tyres if you're going for an 18-inch rear is vast,
Yeah.
whereas a 17-inch off-road specific tyres, you're quite limited, I guess.
Exactly. Exactly. I think you've summed that up perfectly. Yes, you can take this bike from a road bike right to a, off-road bike, but there's not a lot of choices. There's not a lot of competition between tyre manufacturers and stuff, just because people aren't offering it. Like I say, Mitas are the only people at the moment that I'm aware of that do that kind of 80-20 super off-road tyre.
Yeah.
And I think in the comment section, if you know of any other tyres, because I looked so much for tyre options for this bike, and it's just hard to find stuff.
Yeah, because when we did the lightweight adventure bike test, we got the Bridgestone AX41.
I think you might have had to go to a 130 or something like that to make it work.
Yeah, and that was hard to find because we wanted the same tyre on all bikes, so it was a controlled tyre, but getting something that was from a 21-inch front to 17-inch rear and an 18-inch rear was difficult.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
okay.
Very small
and that was
point,
a 50-50 tyre.
Yeah.
So not a dedicated off-road tyre.
No, of course. But yeah, I mean, we'll obviously have to nitpick with these bikes, and there'll be people that have this bike and are using it in a different way, that absolutely those problems don't come up. But for someone like myself who's used it 50-50 road and off-road, there is a couple of niggles there along the way.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually. You know, we are in a very fortunate position here at MCN where we get bikes to test for sort of, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months even of a year. We live with them, we do the things we want to do with them, but you know, we're all individuals as riders, so you know what I want to do with a bike may be different to what you want to do on a bike.
Yeah.
But I think what's been great about your test, you know, you've really embraced having this motorbike. It's been a different thing for you. You've really embraced it. You've done pretty much everything on it, from, you know, some quite gnarly off-road to laps of ABR festival, right the way through to, you know, the big tour and travelling abroad. So you've kind of sort of almost done.
It does do everything. It
has
does do
done
everything.
everything.
Yeah, and there's not many bikes that could offer that much everywhere. You know what I mean?
No, that's very true. Yeah,
At this
and
price point.
the comfort at the price point and the capabilities.
Yeah.
So, $1 million question, Joseph: would you buy it?
I would not. No.
You would not.
I
Right,
think
okay.
obviously I'm a 24-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think for me, it's opened my eyes to off-road, which I thank it for, because that is just so fun. And anybody that is thinking about doing off-road, it is like,
Yeah, you really enjoyed it, haven't
it's
you?
so good. I
Genuinely.
literally
There's a smile on
am
his face.
still doing it up until like December in the UK. But what I'd say is, for me, I would sacrifice the road comfort that it's too comfortable for someone like myself. I don't need that level of road comfort for a 40 kilo weight reduction and a little bit more kind of off-road biased, I think, for me, just because of how much I've enjoyed the
So
off-road.
it's not the bike, basically.
It's not the bike, it's just not the right bike for me, basically.
Yes.
But if you're someone that's looking for that kind of value, kind of little adventure bike, this is great. It has been really fun, just not the right bike for me.
Okay.
And then, so just before we wrap up, obviously, you've done thousands of miles on this bike as well.
Yep.
You've been riding with me. What about yourself? How do you feel about it? Because obviously you were really, really excited before the launch. You know what I mean? The reason I wanted this bike as a test bike was because of how excited you were for it. You know, and thinking it could be the unicorn of the class.
Yeah.
How do you think it stacks up?
I think we've hit the nail on the head earlier, where we talked about it being a travel bike rather than an adventure bike, rather than an off-road bike. I think it's a sort of bike that's going to be easy to live with.
Yeah.
You're never going to open your garage door and be completely blown away by it, but you're going to like the fact that it only cost you £6,000.
Yeah.
And I think as a package, it's a very good all-round package. You just need to. If you're a more focused road rider, it's not the bike to have. If you're a more focused off-road rider, it's not the bike to have.
Yeah.
It really is a real sort of compromise. For me personally, the thing I struggle with is the weight of the bike. I just feel like, you know, my thing's kind of off-road. The more riding if I'm riding, I'd rather be off-road than the road now, to be perfectly honest. So the weight I just find is just a bit too much of a compromise, given that there are alternatives that weigh significantly less.
So you're not trading in your 690 for one of these just yet?
I won't be, maybe another 20 years. Well, look, that's I think a really great sort of summary from someone maybe a lot younger than our normal sort of MCN readership and viewers. So it's really great to hear that passion. I hope you agree that Joseph's got for riding motorbikes, and the fact that he's embraced a whole new sort of genre of machinery and enjoyed it. So I hope you've enjoyed watching. Please check back for more of our 2024 long-term test fleet videos.